Let's get it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. In the bullpen today, we have some remarkable leaders who are setting the example of leadership in elected office. I'm talking about elected Solicitor General of Fulton County, that's in Atlanta, Georgia. We have on the show Solicitor General Keith Gammage and also Judge Andre Gammage, South Bend, Indiana. Thank you both for being on the program.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you both. I'm going to start with you, Solicitor Gammage, about your progressive ideology as it relates to restoration of the human being and the approach that you take as an elected prosecutor. Then we're going to have the interesting story and connection to Judge Gammage, and obviously there is relation. So we'll start with you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Richey. We certainly have to protect the public safety as prosecutors and court officials, but I believe equally important is to ensure that we provide pathways toward the elusive American dream. So these second chance initiatives that pour into the community, that focus on uplifting young people, parents, and families all together by a second chance through these and other initiatives is one of our key functions and most critically important to my team and I.
Can we talk about something you just recently did? And you've been doing this since elected. You actually ran on this platform of allowing people the opportunity to get their background stabilized, if you would, to make sure that they don't have a hindrance when it comes to employment, et cetera. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, for so often the criminal justice system has been a sledgehammer and hasn't used the kind of soft glove touches that we should be utilizing, in my view, with a holistic, individualized approach to the measure of punishment and justice for both victims, witnesses, and those who are accused. So through the restorative justice initiatives, particularly expungements and record restrictions, we look back at people who have fallen, who've made a misstep, but now who have taken steps to become rehabilitated and are looking to improve their lives. And just about every time we hear a story from someone, it's not just about them wanting to remove barriers that are in their path. Just about every story we hear is about them trying to be a better human being for their family.
That's right.
So that work is not traditional for a prosecutor or even for a judge. So the fact that we're empowered to do it and able to do it, some would say is something extra in addition to our statutory duties. What I would say is that it is absolutely required and probably where my team and I receive the most joy and satisfaction from.
Man, I got to tell you, your conferences where you are able to bring so many people together and have the community come out, they can get their records taken care of in various ways, depending on the actual charge, has become a hallmark here in the city of Atlanta. And that's why this conversation is important. Now, the connectional factor is very beautiful. We're talking about Judge Gammage, because as a judge, you've been able to do something very similar given the authority that you currently have. So talk to us about that and how other judges could do so as well.
Well, I think one of the words that my cousin Keith has behind him is justice. And unfortunately, we've got these categories of justice. The prosecutor is supposed to do this, and the judiciary is supposed to do this, and the defense is supposed to do this. But justice is all encompassing. We each have a responsibility. One of the things that I saw in my cousin Keith's work is that it is very difficult. When we say something is that you are entitled to an expungement. So all these cases that we expunge are only those cases that the legislature, whether it's the state of Georgia or the state of Indiana or whatever state you might be in, we are just doing what the legislature and the laws of those states allow. However, when that expungement is out there, but people can't get it, they can't get it because of the cost, because of complexity. It is important for all of us to come to the table, especially the judiciary. You know, it's my job, it's our job to be able to make sure that what we represent to people is what they can actually get. And when a person has served their time, the legislature also made up the laws. Look, you served your 5 years. 10 years after you've finished your conviction, Why can you still not get a job? Why can't you go to your grandchild's school to see the play? Because you have a conviction from some years ago. You're still paying the price. So for me, in my role, as Keith said, it is important for all of us to make sure that justice is done, no matter which side of the ledger you're on.
Judge Gammage, you said something quite fascinating. It is simple but profound. You said the word justice.
Yep.
Justice. Talk to us about how your upbringing, how your connection to the solicitor, Keith Gammage, how your approach to the bench today has been informed throughout the, let's just say, the nuances of experience.
Wow. Let me tell you this. Our fathers grew up in Mississippi. Cotton still being picked. Our fathers were born in the mid-30s. While my father didn't talk about much of what happened then, I knew what happened. I heard about what happened, and I've been there. I understood that they went to court every day, every week, every month, every year, hoping for a change, hoping to get justice. Time after time after time, they were denied. I can't imagine what that felt like, not to be able to sit, not to be able to eat, not to be able to live. When I took the bench, I knew that it was important for me, given that background, given my father and my uncle went through great men without the benefit of the proper education, the type of people that they were. It was my job to be able to make sure that when people came into my courtroom, they got the kind of justice that was denied many years ago. And the fact that my father and Keith's father were denied that kind of justice, the great men that they were, I couldn't let that happen.
Wow. Solicitor Gammage, I remember saying on record on my radio show years ago that you were the first person that I had personally witnessed who ran on this platform of restorative justice and won. And when you got into office, you did it. So while this may be commonplace for some jurisdictions, and it may be a term that's accustomed into the social context now, very few people were talking about this as prosecutors. Talk about what you faced being a person running on the platform and then implementing the platform as well.
You know, I think people did not think at that time in 2015 and 16 when I began a campaign of restorative justice. Quite frankly, in Georgia, people were unfamiliar with it. And folks were talking then about lock them up and throw away the key still in 2015 and 2016. And that was my experience as a young public defender, and even when I became a prosecutor here in Georgia. But somehow the Lord put in our hearts and heads the belief that there could be a different approach. And now we've seen really that whirlwind happen all across the nation as prosecutors and judges and even folks within the various components of the system look for new ways and new pathways. I think the most recent one that you asked about, April 5th, where we locked arms with Ambassador Andrew Young, civil rights icon and legend, who observed some of those things that Judge Gammage just described that our fathers and mothers saw and experienced. He fought alongside other civil rights leaders, just like our parents and forebears did, to build a better tomorrow and a better reality in America. And so inspired by a view that we can distinguish between those who are truly a threat. We're not soft on crime. We distinguish between those who are truly a threat to public safety, those who are a terror in our communities, and those who need a more gentler touch and guardrails to bring them towards success. That record restriction and expungement work that we're doing is that look back to move people forward. And I would say it is absolutely God's work, and it is absolutely inspired by the journey of people who've not always had the best opportunity in the system. And we do have that duty to deliver justice in every form of the word.
And I love what you said. You know my story, and I will echo it again. I talk about it publicly. When I was 17 years of age, I was a foster kid, didn't know what I was doing in life, was caught up in gang life. I was facing 22 years in prison. And because of a second chance program called the First Offenders Act, not only do I not have a felony conviction today, part of the mandate of the program was to get your high school diploma, get a job, or go to college. And I can say I got a bunch of college behind me now as a professor. And I think sometimes of how many opportunities would have been taken away from me if I would have had a felony conviction on my record at 17. And the reason why 17 was so important is because Georgia had just passed a law that made all 17-year-olds adults for one context only, and that was for criminal prosecution. So at 17, you were an adult in the state of Georgia for criminal prosecution. Judge Gammage, I only have a few minutes left. I want you to just talk directly to some other judges that may be in a position that you're in, and they can do what you're doing. What would you encourage them to do?
What I would encourage them to do is do justice and be diligent about that. My efforts here in St. Joseph County were years in the making. I continue to talk to the prosecutor. I continue to talk to the prosecutor time after time, week after week, month after month. I'm sure he was tired of hearing from me. I continue because justice is hard, right? Justice is hard. And so I partnered with people. So those things that I was not able to do from the bench, I partnered with the prosecutor. I partnered with the University of Notre Dame Law School. I partnered with another firm here. So whatever you can't do from the bench on your own, it is important. When you recognize that there's injustice there, you have a responsibility to right that injustice. And what you do need to do is you need to bring in the partners that you need to bring in to be able to make justice happen. That's your responsibility.
Well said. Solicitor Gammage, same question to you. For those who are elected prosecutors, they are in a position to do this kind of justice. What would you say to them?
In law, we have different types of evidence, Dr. Richey. You actually represent the best evidence, the highest form of evidence and proof that second chance opportunities do work. Look at your success and think about that work, your pathway, and how you just described those barriers being removed have helped you. What I often do is call other prosecutors, and I would do so now, to ask them to think out of the box. Think about what justice really must do, what justice really must look like, even reimagined. Come out of the courthouse, out of their offices, like many of them are doing now. Lean into the community and see what the citizens and people in the community actually need, what uplifts them and what will help them get a true sense of what that justice looks like. What Judge Gammage alluded to, every one of the records we've expunged represents from $5,000 to $7,500. That's the cost that, at a minimum, the cost that it would take to hire a lawyer to look into whether you might be a candidate for an expungement or a record restriction. So I would just keep calling them to think out of the box, to be thoughtful, to really deeply pursue justice. And to Judge Gammage's point, find partners who can advance that mission, whether that's second chance career opportunity folks that you partner with, whether it's folks in the educational and academic spaces like Notre Dame, UGA is who we partner with here. Thinking and collaborating and never, ever, ever surrendering. Never surrendering to the notion that we can make that Kingsian dream a reality.
Amazing. I know the lives that you transform by way of these programs. And I say thank you on my behalf and their behalf as well, and the families that they are connected to. Solicitor Keith Gammage, thank you so much. Judge Gammage, thank you. We hope to have you all back on the program very soon. Really appreciate your leadership.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you all so much.
All right.